Hi, my name is Marcus, and welcome to Servant King. This is a Confusion programs. It is called My Story. It is revealing, and it made me have to think some more. Now, I told you in the last program that I'm just a regular, ordinary type of guy living a normal life. I guess you would say I'm middle class, doing okay for myself. Basically average right across the board. Now, I know I'm slightly better looking than average, but otherwise I'm just totally average. I'm a common guy, a commoner, a member of the House of Commons. Today I think I'm peculiar. Other people think I'm peculiar. But back then I was nothing special. My mom thinks I'm something special, but that's my mom. I also like to think that my wife thinks I'm something special, but I know that she's only legally required to like me because of our marriage contract. A few years ago, I'm this normal, ordinary guy competing like all of you for the Commonwealth. I had a business where I bred falcons, hawks, eagles, owls, and vultures, and sold them people all over the world. It was a farming operation of livestock, but in my case, people think of them as wildlife animals as opposed to domestic animals. Then one day, new laws are passed, legislation, and I now need a license to keep all my birds. It's the law. Now, being dumb as a box of rocks, I react to this like I'm supposed to. Hey, this isn't right. I think I will protest. How can my government pass a public law regarding my private property? Of course, today I can think clearly, and I can see things. Today I think rather than react. But I need to tell the story as it happened then. So I thought my birds were my private property. You see, I had worked hard, I contributed to society, I paid my taxes, I paid my share. And then what's left is my commission for working. My disposable income to do with as I please, at my pleasure. So, instead of buying maybe a TV or a snowmobile or whatever people buy with their money, I bought falcons and hawks. I could never have a bird from the wild. There was no harvest. These are public resources. The birds in the wild are public resources, and they're vested here in Canada in what's called the Crown. And there's rules about that, and if there is any use or consumption of them, you have to pay a fee for it, and they're regulated. But I could never have any. Even the birds that were broken wing or sick or injured or couldn't survive in the wild. No, just kill them. Can't have them. I could have bred from them, made them useful, but no, can't have them. So I went and bought my own birds. So my birds are not a public resource and didn't come from the wild. Then the law changed, and I read the new law, and it goes, no, your birds are the same as the birds in the wild. My red-tailed hawk, my snowy owl, my bald eagle, no difference in the law with my birds and one flying out in the wild. So, now it's against the law to have these birds. Yesterday it was legal. Today it's illegal. The law says no person shall keep any of these birds of prey in captivity, except under the authority of a license. So now I have to apply for a license to keep what I thought was my property. It's the law. Now, you can't just go get a license. You can't just say, hey, I'd like to have a license to keep what's mine. No, you have to beg for it. You have to plead. You have to request. Not only that, you have to pay a fee for that. So, if I want to keep the fruits of my labor, 30 years of work, sacrifice, I have to keep, or I have to beg to keep it. I have to pay a fee to keep it. It may be approved, it may not be approved. If I don't get the license, I lose everything. I guess the owner comes and takes them. I'm not sure at this point how this works. So you see, yesterday what was right, today is only just a privilege. It's no longer right to keep birds of prey. And when I explain to you what a license is, you will understand this. This will come a little further on in the programs. Now that it is a licensed activity, I need permission to do what is illegal. Now there is a public interest in my activities and what I have. Anyone can complain about my activities now. And my facility was open to the public for demonstrations and so forth. So now anybody who doesn't know anything about birds can come in and complain. They have an interest in my birds, in my facility. And then the complaints start to come in. Once you get so many complaints coming in, founded or unfounded, we're not renewing your license. And this is how it's done. You see, if you have a beautiful facility and you spent millions and millions of dollars on the care of your animals, how people think an animal should be taken care of, then the animal's healthy. If your facility doesn't look very good, and I'm not saying my facility didn't look good, but if people start complaining about whatever, then they think your animals aren't healthy. One has nothing to do with the other. It's only public perception. So this is how you are strangled until you die. This is how things are shut down. Just to implement an outright ban and seize all your property would be too obvious. People would start to wake up to this. So it has to be done in a slow, gradual way until it seems normal. And by the way, my tax contributions, what I contributed to society, well, that's what everyone decides what they're going to do with that money. And so they would use that money for some good and moral upright purpose or organizations, like studying why a polar bear is white, or how the red-headed woodpecker got its name. And somebody will do their thesis on that and get a doctorate. So that's how this is done. So now my private property is being regulated by the public. But the public doesn't come over and feed or care for my birds. No. Yet they have a say in all of it. Some committee in some city, office. We don't like what you're doing. These are the regulations. This is how you have to do it. If I have a loss, it's not their loss, yet they have a say in all of it. So, if I cannot have these birds without asking permission and care for them as I please, then I guess I do not own them, do I? And of course, I'm still confused. I don't know how this all works. Yet, we are told about home ownership and owning your car outright after 48 payments. I did not know this at the time, but these are damn lies. Yet we believe it. So I'm thinking, this is not right, this is wrong. But heaven knows it's legal. So I was playing by the rules, and now the rules changed. Over 30 years into the game, the rules are just changed. This is cheating. You can't just change rules halfway through a game. That's not fair. Think about it. You do all this work and labor and make sacrifices which have all become in vain because of the rules are changed. How would you feel? What would you do? And yet you see this going on in society every single day, and people just look at it and go, oh, it's awful. He's lost everything. He's got no career anymore. What's he going to do? How's he going to survive? And no one ever realizes what the real problem is. So, you would say, you're a cheater. I think you would want to start this game over again. But this time, you know something, a secret. I won't be confused. This time I won't be deceived. This time I'm ready for you. But how do you start this game over again? In there lies the solution. But back to the story. No one can help me. What do? I can beg, or I can refuse to beg. My lawyer can't help me, a court can't help me, my member of parliament, my representative, my priest, prime minister, queen, pope, my mother, nobody can help me. So one day I'm in the lawyer's office, and the lawyer tells to me, well, it's the law. The only thing you can do is lobby the government. Go and beg. You are a registered beggar, are you not? He didn't say it quite like that, but that's what he meant. And he can see that I'm trying to play lawyer. I'm trying to understand the law. I don't know anything about the law like nobody else does. I don't even know why anybody obeys something they don't understand. But so he gives me a book on property law, and here you go, you poor little dumb idiot. Go home and read that, and let me do what I need to do for you. So I read it, and of course it's all gooble gunk to me. And I return it in a day or two. And while I'm in the front waiting area of this law office, the senior lawyer, he knows me and he knows what's going on, and he can see I'm upset about this. And he says something to me that's quite shocking. This is what he said. He said, "You do not own anything, Marcus. Not in this country you don't." And I thought, oh, I didn't know that. I wonder who else knows that. Now, a lot of people think they know that. A lot of people were probably told, maybe by that same lawyer. And they just walk away, like, shake their head, and I don't understand that. I guess I don't own anything, and just go back to whatever they were doing. So, I would never figure that out. I'm not that smart. You see, you cannot figure out deception. This is what I told you before about deception. There is no way to do that. No one that is deceived has ever known it. This was just a stroke of luck. Just pure luck. How would I know that when I was told the opposite my whole life? I was told a lie. This is a fraud. You see, it's not even that I didn't know this. It's that I was told the opposite on purpose, tricked on purpose, deliberately. That's deception, and that's a fraud, and fraud is a crime. Now, I've told, I don't know, maybe 50 people since then that you don't own any property. Nobody cares. Everybody likes being a beggar. Or they go trying to, hold some of their own vanity, their own whatever, and go, well, I know I don't really own anything. But it doesn't bother anybody. It doesn't even bother them who actually owns everything. So, little did I know at this time, it was just the tip of the iceberg, meaning I couldn't see the rest yet. So I start, like everybody, start writing some letters to the different government departments. So one day I get a phone call from a lawyer in the Attorney General's office. That's the king or the queen's lawyer. And I call back, and we have a little short discussion, set up a meeting, and I go down to see this fellow. When I get there, I tell him what this lawyer in town told me, this senior lawyer, that I don't own anything. I said, is that true? And he confirms it. Yeah, you don't own anything. I said, oh. I said, I don't own my socks? No. Running shoes? No. My TV? No. You don't own anything. So in fact, I do own something. What I own is nothing. That's what I own. So I ask him, we're sitting at a table in a little boardroom there, and I asked him, I said, if I don't own anything, why would I pay for anything I don't own? How could I ever have a debt for anything? And he sat there and he looked at me and paused. A good 30 seconds went by. He paused and waited. He did not know how to answer this question. This little master of confusion. He did not know how to answer that question. Finally, this is what came out of his mouth after a long pause. He said, if you had never applied for a birth certificate, you would still own your property. Now, what does that mean? I haven't a clue. So, when you apply for a birth certificate, what does that make you? Makes you a loser. Hey, loser. Loser of property, according to him. Now, what he said now, from what I know now, is that's sort of right, but not totally right. But again, he didn't know how to answer it. So it took me well over a year just to learn that when you want to understand anything, you have to go back to the root of the thing. Where it began, the source, the cause of an effect, the origin. It sounds like a simple idea, but nobody does it. So, the word author means one who produces, creates, or brings into being. The beginner, former, or first mover of anything. Hence, the efficient cause of a thing. So somewhere I must have authorized something to start something. So, I go to where all information for government things starts. Starts with, I was born and a statement of birth was made. My parents filled out a statement of birth. I'll show you what one looks like. If you've never seen one before, you don't get your statement of birth. They have that now. They won't give it to you. But they'll give you a certificate of the statement of birth. So a lot of people, when they look at this, they think, oh, that's a statement of birth. No, that's a certificate. And what's photocopied on the certificate is the statement of birth. So the statement of birth is certified by the certificate. Okay? And so I go into the office of the Registrar General with my regular small birth certificate, and I ask him if I can see a copy of the statement of birth, of my birth. So they look at my birth certificate, see my name, and they went and got a copy. And the young guy comes over to the desk, and he's holding it like this, and he goes, "Here, have a look." So I hold it from the bottom, and but he's standing there, and he's not letting go of it. And I thought, that's weird. So I said, "Could I hold it?" He goes, "No." And he wouldn't let go of it. I said, "Why won't you let go of it?" He goes, "A little while ago, a lady ran out of here with one of these." And I thought, so what? It's just a stupid statement of birth, right? Somebody filled out a government form. That was the first strange thing, okay? I look over to the left, and there's 4 police officers standing up against the wall. This is the place where you get birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates. You want to change your name, fill out an application to change your name. I thought, must have been some crime committed here. Why would all these police officers be standing here? So I asked him some questions about my birth certificate, and he doesn't really know the answers to these. He says, "You have to see a commissioner." So I said, "I'd like to see a commissioner." So I wait for about an hour, and nobody calls me. Finally, I have to go down the hallway, and I go through another door unmarked, and I walk in there, and it looks like a bank. There's a big front hallway to the room, and then there's a counter, and then 5-foot-high glass, and then the glass, there's little round holes you speak through, and places where you slide in underneath, just like when you're doing deposits and withdrawals. And there's girls working at desks behind this glass. Nobody gets up to walk over to see me. So I walk towards the end of it, and I can see a room to the left, so I lightly tap on the glass there, and some lady comes out of the side room, and she looks at me, and she says, "Yes?" I said, "I would like to ask you some questions about my birth certificate." She goes, "Oh." And she's standing off. She won't even come up to the counter. And I said, and she says, "Is that your birth certificate?" And I said, "Well, I just want to ask you questions about a birth certificate." "Sir, is that your birth certificate?" I said, "I just want to ask you some questions about a birth certificate." "Sir, is that your birth certificate?" I said, "Yeah, it's my birth certificate." "Okay, what?" So I started asking her questions about the numbers, registration number, certificate number, all sorts of things about it, right? And on the front, there's a certificate number. She says, "That's the certificate number." I turn it over. There's a great big red number. I said, "What's that?" She says, "That's the certificate number." So anyways, so we're having a nice little conversation. No cross words about anything. She just seemed hesitant, though. And so anyways, I'm looking at my birth certificate, and at the very bottom of the birth certificate, it says, I hope you can see this, it says Canadian banknote. And I thought, this must be a Canadian banknote. And what do you do with a banknote? Well, it's redeemable to bearer, I guess. So I asked her, I says, "Is my birth certificate, is this a Canadian banknote?" She says, "Yes." Wow. So I thought, okay. So I take the birth certificate and I slide it underneath the glass, and I said, "I'd like to redeem my Canadian banknote, please." And she says to me, she says, "Now you can redeem it if you like, but there is no cash value." You see, after reading all the stuff on the internet and all these people out there that don't know anything about this stuff either, like I don't, I thought, wow, I've hit the jackpot. Just redeem my birth certificate, my Canadian banknote. And if you believe the stuff you read on the internet, she's going to come out with a wheelbarrow full of gold coins or something, like some private account that's got all this money in there for you. But she says you can redeem it, but there is no cash value. Just as she says that, all of a sudden there's a voice right behind my head, and it says, "Excuse me, sir, but I've been asked to ask you to leave." So I turn around and look, and there's a police officer standing right up against me. And I look at him, and I thought, wow. So I looked back and I said, "You can ask all you like." And I turned back to the glass, and the girl was gone. So I tapped on the glass again. She comes back. By now I'm sort of flustered, and asked her a couple more questions or whatever. And then I left. As I left, the police officer standing up against the wall. I said, "So you were going to throw me out of here for asking questions?" "No, I was just asked to ask you to leave." So I thought, what's this all about? Creepy. Wow. Something strange going on here. It should tell you that whatever you're involved with here is none of your business, or you're involved in something that's none of your business. A huge revelation. Anyways, about a month later, I go back with certified statement of birth. It's the only document I had left. And as I walk into the same room, there's a police officer standing down the hallway a little bit. As he sees me, he backs out of another door. I thought, wow, do I have leprosy or something? This is creeping me out. So I go over to the counter again, tap on the glass. A girl comes up, and I ask her some questions about this document. She doesn't know the answer. She gets another girl. She gets another girl. Before I know it, there's 3 or 4 girls standing around. They're not going back to their desk. They're all sort of like, why is he asking these questions? What's this? You know, they're all sort of nervous about this. So I all of a sudden I asked him a question. I said, this paper here, I said, I can see there's a seal on here, and there's like pre-printed stuff on here, and then I can see like sort of other stuff put on here. Where does this come from? And this girl, that was the most senior girl there, she says, oh, we get this form from the Bank of Canada, and we just photocopy the statement of birth on there, and then we issue it. I said, excuse me? Bank of Canada? Well, why would the Bank of Canada be interested in my birth? What do they have to do with certifying a statement of birth? Well, you should have seen her face. Anyways, from that moment onwards, it was like nervous as could be. I mean, this girl was ready to pee her pants. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And I asked a couple more questions, and I could see they were just all over themselves. So I said, okay, well, thank you very much. And I said, could you please tell me what your name is for my record so I know who I spoke to? And she goes, no. I mean, she was ready to cry. So what's going on here? Some sort of secret? Why are they all acting so nervous? I'm telling you, I felt like I was in some sort of conspiracy movie. And this is a government office in a downtown city. So a little while, now I did a lot of things over the years to learn and discover a lot of things which you're otherwise not supposed to know. So around this time I took a leap of faith. I figure if this stuff is none of my business, then I shouldn't be involved in it. Get rid of it. If no one's going to answer the questions for me, what these documents really are, then I'll just get rid of them. You see, sure, you're told if you want this, you need to get this. If you want that, you have to get this. If you want to leave the country, you have to get this. If you want to take your baby with you, you have to get this. If you want to keep your dog, you have to get this. Doesn't matter what you want to do. If you want to do that, you need to do this. But what's going on here? Is there some sort of authorization that I'm doing? Or making some sort of agreement or contract or whatever? I know nothing about the law. So I go back into town, go see my lawyer, and I tell him this. And of course, he's just being evasive as can be. Whether he knows things or not, I don't know. He can't answer, won't answer, or he just answers in a stupid way. So, what did I do? I gave him my marriage license. I gave him my passport. I gave him my birth certificate, my driver's license, social insurance card, health card, credit cards, firearms acquisition certificate, radio telephone operator's license, hunting license, anything I had. Gave it to him. He says, you don't want this? I said, no, you keep it. You have it. I don't want it. Never again. I said, I never asked any questions when I got them. I just did what was common sense. Monkey see, monkey do. So about a month later, I'm thinking, well, if I don't own any property, I don't need a will, do I? I mean, a will for after I die, where my property goes? Well, it's not my property. What do I need a will for? So I went back into the lawyer and I said, you know the will I have registered with you, like all families do? I said, let me see it. So he brings out a copy of my will, and I tear it up in front of him. He goes, oh, you shouldn't do that. I said, well, I told him I don't own anything. I don't need a will. Bring me my power of attorney, too. Brings me that, tear it up, throw it in the garbage. So that's all gone. Now, I know that's not a common thing to do, but then remember, I'm becoming peculiar. So next year or two or whatever, as I'm still learning and researching things, you know, I ask lawyers many different questions because they know things. I pay close attention to the words they're using. And of course, I'm like everyone else. I'm talking to various groups and learning stuff off the internet and reading law books or whatever the case may be. Somehow, whatever is wrong, you know, this can't be right. But all these groups and all these people that seem to know all these things that are wrong, confused like I am, but nobody's getting any results. So what good is this? So, now, like I said, I did a lot more things, but I still really don't know at this time that I don't own anything. I mean, I've been told it, but I don't understand why I don't own anything. So, I don't even know what I'm looking for yet. But in my quest, I learned some things. And these things I learned from the Office of the Registrar General, these initial documents about birth certificates. And this comes both in the form of quotes from government officials and also in correspondence. What I learned is that the Registrar General does not register people, only events. So there's no people registered in Canada. Only your birth, the event of your birth. Which of course is stupid because if a cow is registered and you register its birth, you're registering the cow. But it's just their way of saying that, no, we don't register people. We don't handle them like a piece of commerce or merchandise. A birth certificate is a valuable token. A token. Token is a sign or mark of something else, not the real thing. A token is a counterfeit. The other thing I learned is that a birth certificate is an abstract of the birth registration. Abstract means, well, it's not reality. It's not specific. It's not concrete. Nothing specific. A birth certificate does not certify the birth of a living individual. How's that grab you? Hold on for a second. What's going on here? I'm living. There's my name. The day I was born. Place I was born. What the hell is this all about? My birth certificate does not certify the birth of a living individual. Wow. And that's absolutely true. Now this is going to be one of the main concepts that's going to be very hard for you to grasp. A birth certificate, or the legal rights to the birth certificate, sorry, got to go to the next page. The legal rights to the birth certificate are not owned. So the legal rights to your birth certificate, you don't own them. No. Somebody does, but it's not you. A birth certificate is governed by the Vital Statistics Act, whatever that means. It may be used as a foundation identity document to prove you were born in Ontario. If it doesn't refer to a living individual, how can it be your identity? It's impossible. And your birth certificate was never meant to be used as personal identification. Now, I know in Great Britain, they actually put right on it that this is not meant to be used as personal identification. This is insane. I have to use my birth certificate to prove who I am. I need it to send my kids to school or their birth certificate. I need it to get a driver's license, to get a passport. I need it to vote. All sorts of things. But this isn't me. This is utter nuts. So, what do you think now? You still think you know what life is all about? What's going on? Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, there's got to be some reason for this. I don't believe it. And, of course, there is a reason, but you don't know what that is yet. Why has no one ever told me this? Who's going to tell you this? Why was I never given full disclosure to what I was doing or gave any informed consent to any of this? This is what all these people say. Well, you were given full disclosure, but you didn't know where it was, or if you did, you rejected it. But we'll get to that later. Now you need to think, what are the effects of this happening? Remember, the events are recorded. It happened. Maybe this is where the saying comes from when you say someone is certifiable, meaning they're nuts. Then one day, a little while later, I see in a big major newspaper this. This is an advertisement from the Ontario Ministry of Government Services advertising their birth certificates. Come and buy one. Be one of us. And it says birth certificates without the labor. Now, I'm sure every master of confusion that morning over their coffee were looking at that and just laughing their head off. But when you figure out what that finally is, it's not anything funny. It's sick. You see, there was no labor involved in the birth of this being. Your birth certificate is the birth of a being, but there was no labor involved in that birth. Not like your real birth. In this case, the labor comes after the birth. Remember I told you, I said the trick, the swindle cannot work without you. It would have no value. There's property they need. So I also learned that when you use your birth certificate as identification, you are only purporting to be this birthed being. I don't even know what purporting means, but I got that off a notarized copy of a birth certificate. So what does purport to be? Purporting means have the often specious appearance of being, intending, or claiming. So you have the appearance of it. Specious. Plausible but false, based on pretense, deceptively pleasing. A synonym of specious is spurious, means intended to deceive. So when you got yourself a birth certificate, you're intending to deceive somebody. Every time you use that document, you're deceiving. Your intention is to deceive. A little while later, I'm going through these records called Hansard records. These are the government-kept company that keeps records of all the conversations, like in Congress in the U.S. or Parliament here in Canada. Every word that's spoken by our members of Parliament. So I'm looking through that one day, and I see where the Deputy Registrar General, who looks after all these documents, the Vital Statistics Act, they're amending the Vital Statistics Act, and of course she has her lawyer with her because she doesn't know anything. Only the lawyer knows how this works. And members of Parliament asked this lawyer, how does someone become eligible to have a birth certificate? And the answer she gave was, this was a lady lawyer, she says, well, we have a formula to calculate it. But I can't tell you what the formula is or how it's done. So it must be one of those top secret things. Even our members of Parliament, people that go there to speak for us, they can't know this. Secret. Now, I've seen on a number of these statements of birth, I see numbers down the side here, like someone's marking a test or doing some calculation or tabulation or grading system. I wonder what that's all about. Sort of a strange thing. So the more I learn, the less I know. Very confused now. What does this all have to do with the law? So I'm now at the point where I know I don't own anything. You are a professional beggar. Your birth certificate is not you. Someone doesn't want you to know things. Your servants are sworn to some sort of secrecy. Members of Parliament cannot know some things. What the hell's going on? I'm starting to feel like I'm in some conspiracy movie. It doesn't matter who I tell this stuff to. I mean, if you believe my story, it's true. It happened. If you don't believe it, well, so what? It doesn't matter. The truth is it happened. All this stuff actually happened. So now let me tell you what happens when you don't know how things work and you think, I don't want to be involved in this anymore. So let me tell you what happens when you don't own anything and you refuse to be a beggar, to beg for a privilege from the owner. I had birds for over 30 years, a lifelong work and labor, something I labored for my family, for their security, and so forth. Yesterday it was legal, today it's illegal unless I beg and ask for a privilege and pay money for it, a fee. Please, can I keep my birds? I mean, boss, please, can I keep my birds? They tell you, fill out an application. Maybe we will approve it, maybe we won't. We'll let you know. But I worked my whole life for this. Too bad. It's the law. So here's the answer. They come with a SWAT team. They paint their faces like Indians on the warpath, with loaded machine guns. They threaten to taser you if you don't kneel down in front of them. They lock you in a cage, and then they take all your birds. Hundreds. I had hundreds of thousands of dollars in birds when I stopped begging. These birds have been given free of charge to other people who did nothing for them. They weren't auctioned off. People from the public didn't have to buy them. No, just give them to other people. Here, you can have them, breed them, sell them, whatever. They're yours now. Here you go, good beggar. Here is your reward for begging properly. If I had tried to resist at all, they would have killed me. I'm serious. I'm not joking about this. I would be dead right now. People who have strong beliefs kill for them. You have to be very careful around them. Now, this doesn't get reported in a newspaper. No. This will never pass the legal department. You see, it's like I'm sitting at the dinner table one night with my wife, and we have some friends over for dinner. And I turn to my wife and I say, darling, could I please have some more potatoes? And what do my friends think? They think that if I ask for a little bit more food to eat, my wife hits me. She's a husband beater. And this is why they come with the SWAT team. I mean, I have a bird. So what? So I got a few birds. But when they come with the SWAT team, it's like, well, this guy must be dangerous. Why would they go with the SWAT team? He must have guns. He's going to kill us. Why would we go with the SWAT team? Why would we raid the place with 30 SWAT guys? You see, this is to make you think things that aren't even true. And nobody knows anything about that. Anyways, that's all the woe is me I'm going to tell you about the story. Okay? So now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, surely they'd have to compensate you for that. You just can't lose everything, can you? Or you didn't obey the law. What do you expect? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. See, I don't own anything. Neither do you. Now, you may not believe all this, but believe me, it's a fact. Couldn't happen in your country? Of course it'll happen in your country. Believe me, it's a fact. Who cares about this? No one. Who will help you? No one. There has to be more to the story, yeah? Yeah, there's a little bit more to the story, but everything I've told you is absolutely true. So this is how my story began, a true story. Are you able to figure out what my problem is yet? I told you. Every problem you will ever have in life is the result of owning no property. But I had no idea about that back then. So now, we need to look at what it means to own property. I did not know this when I began, but I do now. So, what does it mean to own property? Property is the holy grail of law. Property is always in the custody of the law. Property is a peculiar, meaning one's own, right in lands and chattels to the exclusion of all others. It is the sole and despotic dominion which a man exercises over the things of the world to the exclusion of the right of any other individual. To own property means that you have the exclusive possession, use, control, management, and disposal of the thing to the exclusion of all others. It is a peculiar right. Peculiar, one's own. Exclusively yours. That's what peculiar means. No other man can tell you what to do with what is yours. This is the foundation of all law. Whoever owns it can rule over it. Now you understand how important it would be to own property. But who wants to be peculiar? We think of peculiar as someone weird, strange. Peculiar. Some people think I'm a peculiar man. Well, I'm certainly not common. Not anymore. Being peculiar is good if you want to own anything. If you own something, you have the exclusive right to regulate it. Like I said in the introduction video, we have all been deceived into abandoning our birthright. Our inheritance is in our birthright, and our property is in our inheritance. Without property, you can have no liberty. Why? Without property, you have no need of dominion. You own nothing to have dominion over. Everything you think you own must be borrowed by using it, by borrowing it or using it from someone else. A borrower is always a servant to the lender, and a borrower is always a user. And using what is not yours requires you to take interest in what is not yours. This is called usury. People think usury just has to do with money. No, it's more than that. Also, if you do not own anything, then anything you have must come from the trust of the owner, or you stole it from the owner. There is no other choice. Now, if you do not own anything, then neither does the guy next door. Nobody owns anything. Who then owns everything? This is a good question, don't you think? Can the owner take back anything I have at any time? This is a serious question. How could you ever plan for the future with this uncertainty hanging over you? Could everything I work for and labor for actually come to being in vain? I wonder if I own my life. Can someone legally kill me? Can someone legally sterilize me? Can someone legally inject me with drugs? Can someone legally put a dog collar on my leg and make me stay in my house? Can someone legally tell me I cannot speak to or even see my children? Can my children be legally taken away from me and given to someone else, and I can't even know where they are? What could be more important in life than this? I can tell you that no matter what misery or problem you are having or will ever have, this is the question you have to explore and find the answer to. This is it. Every problem you have ever had is because you own no property. You see, right now, whenever there is some regulation about anything, you just say to yourself, it's the law. Everyone's scared of the law. There's going to be a penalty if you don't obey the law. But nobody even knows what the law is or how the law is made. It never occurred to you that you do not own anything. Why? Because you were told that you do own things. But that's a lie. That's a damn lie. You see, being told a lie is a fraud. You believe you own something when in fact you don't. Now, I will admit that when you have or hold something that is not regulated, it will feel like you own it, but you do not. This is the exact thing that woke me up, and it should wake you up too. Explaining why you own no property is complex, but will become apparent as we go on. I will be giving you all the facts, evidence, and proof, and many examples to prove to you that you own no property. Basically, anything you could ever go to court for means you don't own it. If you can go to court because someone slandered you, that's proof that you do not own your name. Not even your name. If you can go to court to get custody of your own child, it's proof it's not your child. You do not own it. When I finally reveal to you who owns everything in Canada or the U.S. or as a matter of law, you will fall off your chair in utter disbelief. I guarantee it. Back to my story now to finish it. So now I'm about 2 years into my quest, completely confused. I know nothing. But in my quest, two things stick out in my mind that seem relevant somehow. These two things are words, just plain, ordinary, everyday words, and this concept of God. Yeah, God. What's God all about? Now, I'm by no means a religious man, but I can tell you that these two concepts led to all my discoveries. But not in the way you think. You've been trained to think about words and God in a certain way. As we proceed, you're going to learn that nothing you do in life has anything to do with God, even you religious people. But why then? Are there references to God in courts, on money, in constitutional documents, in law, in politics? It's everywhere. And the problem I'm having with words is that I can't make heads or tails out of what words even mean. The more I learn, the more I get confused. So, to you, this is all just a story. It's a true story. And you're thinking, well, if this is all true, then there's got to be a good reason for it. Something I don't know, something he doesn't know, whatever. No, it doesn't work like that. I told you I was going to tell you things that are unbelievable. And believe me, I've only just begun. So in the next video, I will talk about words, just plain, everyday, ordinary words. And after watching this next video, you may want to slow down how fast you read. Till then, my name is Marcus.